Welcome to episode 24 of FoundersGyan. Each week we bring you the inspiring story of a startup and the founder behind it. This week we are featuring another young founder. He is Varun Mayya, one of the founders and CEO of Jobspire.net, that is Jobspire.net. Jobspire is a company that aims to showcase startup companies' culture and to help both startups and potential employees find a good match with each other. Varun has had previous experience in the startup world in the form of Sizr, that is Sizr.com, and is also a full stack developer and a very technical person. We had a great time in putting this interview together, and what's more, we were joined by Varun's pet dog for the interview since it was Bring Your Pets to Work Day when we did this interview. Do check out the show notes over at www.foundersgyan.com/EP24 and also the top listened podcasts at foundersgyan.com/top. Before we move on to the show, I just want to give a quick shout out to my sponsor, Bangalore Chess Academy. If you're interested in learning chess from a pro, do check out www.bangalorechess.com, that is BANGALORECHESS.com. They offer all sorts of coaching right from beginners to tournament players. Maybe you want to learn the game, maybe you want to show young kids who could benefit from learning this great game. Remember that playing chess is known to develop life skills such as independent decision making, confidence building, competitive skills, pattern recognition, abstract thinking, and concentration building. All these are important, as you founders would know. And what's more, if you mention the code FoundersGyan while enrolling into Bangalore Chess Academy, you will get 30% off on all their services. Now let's get on with the show, shall we? Varun, welcome to the show. Super excited to be speaking with you today. A quick brief on Varun. He's the CEO and founder of Jobspire.net, a platform that aims to make it easier for startups and employees to connect with each other. Varun is an old hand in the IT industry, having been developer, designer, product manager for many projects, as well as having been the CEO of Sizr, that is Sizr, a web product development company. Varun, great to meet you, and thanks a lot for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your knowledge, wisdom and time with our listeners. Thank you for agreeing to be on the show.
No problem. Anytime.
Okay, Varun, can you fill in the blanks from the intro about your journey before Jobspire? Did I get everything? Is there additional things you'd like to say?
Well, there's a great story if you'd like to listen to it.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
So I think when I was in college, this was when I was 18, I think 19, I met a few friends. Actually, one of them still working in Karthik. And we wanted to start a company. Right? We didn't know what we wanted to do, but we wanted to start a company. So what we kind of did was we started selling t-shirts. Mm-hmm. And we called it Sizr Studios, and we targeted our class first. And we made quite a bit of money. We made, I think, 25,000 rupees off that t-shirt business. Once the other classes, and this was in Manipal Institute of Technology, once the other classes kind of saw that we were making t-shirts, they said, make us some. So we started making t-shirts for a lot of people, for a lot of different classes. In fact, at the tech event for MIT, it's called Tech Patwa, we sold over 1,000 t-shirts.
Wow.
Right? And for students, it's a lot of money to make. And I remember we even lost about 25,000 rupees. It just fell down or something like that. Someone got very lucky that day. But then we kind of understood that the effort involved in kind of putting together t-shirts is a lot, right? And the reward, the amount of money you make, and not just the amount of money, it's distribution, printer might make a mistake. So we just said, how do we escape all of this, but still, keep the creative passion flowing? So we started making websites, which is, to me, it was almost the same thing, because you have something in your mind, you put it on a t-shirt, you put it on a website, it's the same thing. So we kind of put this stuff on a website, and I remember the first project I worked on, I got that project from Odesk. And I learned HTML, CSS, and all the tech stuff by myself. I think I worked 3 weeks for this project, and I got paid $100. Mm-hmm. Right. Then by the end of it, within 2 years, me, Karthik, all of us started developing. By the end of it, I was making $100 an hour. Right. Mm-hmm. And it was a great journey, but I kind of realized that this is not what I want to do. I mean, building things for other people is fun. I worked with some great teams across the world. In fact, I was I worked for a MailChimp competitor. I worked for Purdue University. But it gets repetitive and more importantly, you're building someone else's dream. So I said, what's the most challenging thing I can do? And I realized, okay, running my own company on a large scale, running a product. Because the thing with products versus services you'll always survive. Right? With products, it's always hit and miss, and it's always a challenge. So I said, let's do products. And I spoke to Karthik, and he said, yeah, what is a field we should revolutionize? And I said, let's do hiring, because nobody's done it. Naukri, it's been a few years. So they've been out for about 15, 16 years now. So I said, how do we, build a new platform that people will actually use? And before you know it, I'm here talking to you.
Okay, great. That's a great story. Now, so explain in a few sentences what is Jobspire.net. And I think you kind of touched on this, but can you talk a bit more about how you got the idea for this?
Okay. So we wanted to connect startups and employees. In fact, we saw the Infosys and the Wipro and how they were, mass recruiting, and we said, this is not the way you're supposed to work. You're supposed to have fun when you're working. So our vision in the beginning was aspire to find a job you truly love. Right? We were helping candidates. It was a very candidate-focused site. We didn't even care about the employees in the beginning. We said, let's build the best platform for a candidate to, browse through different companies and find a job he really likes. And we'd seen sites like this in the US, but they're all pivoted, and we weren't sure why. Right? We said, this is a good idea. Why are these guys running away from it? So we built this. In fact, I was at Startup Weekend in I think it was Startup Launchpad in Bangalore, and Anshumani, who's the VP product at Practo, was our mentor there, and we spoke about it, and I said, this is what we're planning to build, and so on and so forth, and we got a lot of advice that said, you don't do this, it's a bad idea, recruitment portals, there are thousands of them, why are you doing this again? But we stuck with it. We said, we want to kind of give a visual description. We think that offices are important. We think that people are important. So we kind of went with that mindset, and we ran a test. Right? We built a quick prototype. Me, Karthik, Sandesh, we all come from a tech background. So we kind of put it together very fast. And before you know it, people started using the platform. So what is Jobspire's core value prop for applicants is that you get a visual directory of companies. You get to discover companies, new companies where you wouldn't know like whether to work in startup A or startup B, unless you've heard of them in the news 100 times, right? Here we give the differentiation to these small companies, and for the recruiters, of course, we give them a pipeline of top talent, and we make sure they're in a we vet these candidates, so we make sure that there's a Jobspire seal of these guys are good. So that's our value prop on the recruiter side of things. Of course, when we started, we were a little different. Over time, we've added more products. Now we're moving to skill trees and career graphs and so on and so forth. Exciting products on the way.
Okay. I just want to talk a little bit more about the curation process. So how do you vet these candidates? What makes candidate A the top candidate versus maybe you reject somebody, candidate B? What's the...
So we have three buckets, or rather recruitment has three buckets. The first bucket is your premium guys. What we've usually seen is these guys come from an InMobi, Flipkart, and they go to the next company. They go to the Zomatos and the Snapdeals, and they take a small pay package bonus on the way. We call these people the jumpers, right? Then there's your set of people who are freshers, who are coming out. They're looking for opportunities, right? They're completely fresh. But the cost of a bad fresher hire is low, right? Then there's your grays, which your Naukri handles very well, which is people who you can't really put them into categories, and their skill set is ambiguous, right? And their resumes are ambiguous. So what we kind of decided on after a lot of work is we put down something called the Human Metadata Index, which is a 5-point graph, which includes versatility, startup exposure, corporate exposure, technical experience, and startup grit, right? It's your communication skills and all that. And we kind of started comparing people on these traits, right? A little bit of it is algorithmic, a little bit of it the curation happens in-house. And what we've seen is this helps us bucket these people much more efficiently.
Okay, brilliant. I really like the idea of this algorithm and the graph that you're talking about. So that's great. Now, for our budding founders listening out there, you have done a lot of different startups. I would name it as startups, even though t-shirt printing and selling may not be a startup. So are there any tips and tricks you could give for our budding founders listening out there to come up with a winning idea?
I think the idea doesn't matter as much as people kind of claim it to be. In India especially, what I've seen is we raised capital. We raised a round of around 1.7 crores. Now we're going to be doing a Series A in a little bit. What I've kind of seen from my personal experiences, that it's hard, right? It's extremely hard to do this, and the minute you have other options, you're finished. The minute you're even thinking of other options, it's over. There's several periods in Jobspire's phase where things were not looking so great, but we stuck through, right? And I think the most important thing for every founder to have is the ability to stick through, whatever the toll on you, on your body, on your mind is. And in terms of advice, I think in terms of the idea, a lot of people, I had some founder speak to me the other day, and he gave me a call, and I said, hey, what's happening? And he said, I had this really great idea. I want to mix Facebook and Twitter. And I said, it's a great idea. I don't know exactly what you're planning it, but I think you should do some market research, some validation, figure out people actually use this, build a prototype before speaking to people for advice. Even a small prototype is fine. He said, no, I think this is a brilliant idea. If I build a prototype, someone will copy it. Thing is, in India, building a small business is easy. Building a business with 10 users, 20 users is easy. The minute you want to scale, you need huge amounts of capital. It's not so easy to replicate someone else's business and say, okay, this guy has a great idea, I'm going to copy it and build it up.
Right.
And every idea you thought of, at least 100 different people across the world have thought of it.
Right.
Feasibility is more dependent on execution. How you execute it, what your team is like. I could have done Jobspire with a bad team, I could have done it with a good team.
Right.
With a bad team, I wouldn't have lasted 2 months.
Right.
With a good team, with my team today, even if the business completely fails and we're completely on the wrong track, we know how to pivot.
Right.
And once a founder can learn the art of pivoting, don't hold too much, give too much value to your original vision and all that, because it changes over time, because the market changes.
Right.
It's business, not this thing. Let it drive you,
Right.
but don't let it kind of stop you from doing other things.
Okay, great. Now let's talk also, you touched on this a little bit, let's talk about this ideation to creation. So maybe you can just give your own example. So you had this idea, and what are the steps you did? Okay, you built this MVP and prototype, and saw that users started using it. So is that the step to follow, or can you elaborate a bit more on how you scaled up your own business?
Okay, so I'll tell you the story, Jobspire story, which I think I've written an article about. It's available on the Jobspire blog. Do read it. It's a very long article.
Okay.
So how it started was, we were in the 7th semester of college, and we had already thought about this idea. I had a team, me, Sandesh, Karthik, and we had Rushil as well join the team, and Mohak. And we kind of we'd already started building the idea. We didn't have a product, but we spoke to a few HR, and we didn't do so much research in the beginning. We just said, let's build something, see if it works. Because when you're in college, you have time to waste. Right. So we said, let's do it. I was wrong. Right. I realized that actually in college it's harder to do a startup than if you're free, because you have 7 hours of college, 8 hours of college per day. Then you have to come back, you have to eat, you have to then do your homework, assignments. Then you have to come back and work on your startup, which is ideating, which is an immense amount of brain power to waste. And I'm pretty sure I burnt out multiple times during that period. So that's how we started. We put out an initial product. Nobody used our initial product. Then we applied for Microsoft Accelerator. We applied for a lot of different startup incubators. We got one in Delhi. It was called Startup Tunnel. Right. So it was led by Dr. Altya Devsud, and we said, let's go. Let's look at these. Let's see what do we have to lose. So in the 8th semester, we ran a big scam. You're allowed to go and work in a particular company, right? College allows that. So we passed this incubation program off as running working in a company.
Okay.
And so that gave us free time to work on Jobspire. We attended the incubator. We learned a lot from there. It helped us with a few investor contacts as well. Then we kind of finished building the product, and that's another advice I'd like to give: work out of an incubator or a accelerator. It's amazing. Right? And we kind of realized at this point that we need to build something that users want. We didn't realize this up till then, and we started mapping out customer journeys, how things should flow, what real pain points are, where is the problem in today's market. So we kind of put all that in perspective, and we started building a different kind of product. Right? Even now we continuously iterate. If we feel that something's not working, we kind of fix it. right? And we look at different ways to solve the same thing. And after Delhi, I think we spent about 6 months in Delhi, and then we moved all the way to Bangalore, right? And in Bangalore, we kind of raised around. We have some great investors on board. Then we put together this place, and we hired a few more amazing people, and that's the story so far.
Okay, excellent. Now let's talk a little bit more about something personal. Now we all hear about founders sacrificing their family times to make their ventures a success. Can you tell us a bit more about your own family and how you manage to balance business and personal time?
Okay, so personally, I haven't found the balance even now. I think it's if you found the balance, you should be like you'll be doing really well in life. I will find the balance over time, of course. I didn't understand the importance of work-life balance. I used to work 15, 16 hours a day, and because I didn't think of it as work. It was just something cool I was doing. But the minute I raced around and I got we hired some very senior people. In fact, the people in our company are twice the age of, people working for us are like twice our age, and it kind of humbles you and kind of makes you understand what is important and what's not important. I went through burnout multiple times. In fact, worst thing for a founder to go through is burnout, where you can't even wake up, and every time I had a meal, I used to have hypoglycemia. Right? My blood sugar would drop because of the cortisol in my blood. But with knowledge comes power, so I kind of understood what's happening. I started meditating. I started started prioritizing, and I said that I have to spend Saturdays. So here's what my daily routine looks like, then and now. Then I woke up at 7 in the morning, work, maybe eat a meal if I'm hungry. I've completely lost focus on my diet as well, right? I did not speak to my parents, nothing, none of that happened. Sleep at 4 o'clock, 3 hours of sleep, back on the cycle, right? Today my routine looks like this. I wake up at 8 in the morning, I have my breakfast, I spend some time with my family. I have another meal, just a small meal before I come here. Then I come to the office by about 11:30, 12. I work till about 6, 7 in the evening. I go for football, like these kids I play with. I play for about half an hour, 1 hour, just exercise, right? The best part about playing with kids is they have no expectations. For them, it's about the sport. It's not about, oh, I need to do this. It's not goal-oriented play, which I love. Right? It's not hyper competitive. You have to win. These are standings, because that's what I've been doing all my life, competing. So I just play with them for half an hour, 45 minutes, which is amazing. Then I go home, get some sleep. Earlier I used to stay up in the night and all that. I don't do that anymore. By 9:30, 10, I'm out.
Okay.
And I realized I'm 22 years old, right? And most people my age have a completely different life apart from work. And for them, it's you finish work so that you can go out and do things.
Right.
For me, it's right now, at least for the next 1 or 2 years of my life, I need to focus on this. Right. So these are the sacrifices that I'm making. I'm sacrificing everything that a 22-year-old should be doing.
Okay. Excellent. So
we interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
If you like this show, do follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The link is www.facebook.com/FoundersGyan and twitter.com/FoundersGyan. Both these provide you daily tips and articles as well as resources to help and inspire your startup. There are multiple tips per day. Some examples of these tips would be articles on the latest startups, growth hacking tips, how do you build team for startups, how to get funding, etc. So don't forget facebook.com/FoundersGyan and twitter.com/FoundersGyan.
The next question was actually a daily ritual, but you already covered that, so we don't need to go through that. Now, Jobspire was co-founded with, I'm just reading out some names, so correct me if I'm wrong. It's Karthik, Sandesh and Mohak, right? You're all college mates, so how should somebody who's maybe not in college and wanting to start up find co-founders?
I think you should work somewhere. I think you need to build a network before you start a company. Today, if I started a company and not known investors or not known other companies beforehand, it would be so hard for me to onboard. That's why repeat founders and well-networked people raise money very easily, because they have contacts, right? Tomorrow, if I want to sell my company, there's so many options open because of the connections that I made. I make sure I go to events. A lot of people say events are useless. They are useless beyond a point. Today, going to an event is almost useless. But back then, I had to go to events. I had to scavenge all these contacts. Today, if you see our mentor, we have Ankur Varikov group on, although we don't speak too much. He helped us in our initial phases. We have Anshumani Rudra from Practo. So all these people help. And with the co-founder scenario, I think you need to work somewhere, you need to have a network, and you need to call on your network. You need to just shoot a mail to everyone and say, this is what I'm building. Would you guys be interested? And in India, I think it's very important to have a co-founder. I do not think single founder companies ever work. Of course, there has to be one founder taking the lead, being the CEO, having higher equity and all that, but you need to have a team to back up on, because sometimes that person falls sick, issues can happen. You need someone's backbone, you need support system.
Okay, brilliant. Now, can you tell us something about yourself that is not commonly known? Could be personal, could be work.
Personal work. Okay, so I used to often ask myself what my core competency was. What am I good at doing? And I just kept doing so many things, and I realized I was really good at doing all these things. But I think the main thing for me is I think that nobody knows about me. It's actually I'm not the smartest person that I've met. In fact, almost everyone on my team is smarter than me. But I am the most focused. I'm not even the most hardworking. I've seen there are people in my team who are more hardworking than me. But I'm the most focused in the sense if I'm doing something, if I'm doing one thing, I don't do other things, right? Mm-hmm. And with Jobspire, if you had to ask me one quality that separates us from everyone else, at least the founders from everyone else, it's just focus. We said this is the one thing we're going to do. We're not going to do anything apart from it. These are the spectrum of things that we can deviate to in case this first idea doesn't work. But this is all we're doing. And there's no other option. There's no this thing. Even if we go to 0 signups a day, we're still going to continue. And today, luckily, we do about 1,000 signups a day.
Okay, brilliant. Now, what's the best advice that somebody has given you, or alternatively, best advice you have heard and you try to follow?
I think I don't remember his name. I think it was Kunal Shah from Recharge, where I read a quote by him on Twitter, and he said, in the beginning, 100% of your battles are external, right? Over a period of time, 50% is internal, 50% external, right? And I think this is great advice because in the beginning, your core team, everyone's very passionate about the product. The minute you start onboarding other people, they come with other intentions, and of course, you have to maintain your own kind of mindset as well. In fact, there's this one article where I read about getting your daily fix of dopamine. Right, so basically your brain signals, your brain has 2 neurotransmitters. It actually has 3, but for purposes of discussion, there's dopamine, there's serotonin. Right, serotonin is kind of your happiness, contentness. So when you're content, your serotonin levels are high, and dopamine is desire. And they're two. Both these chemicals work in contradiction to each other. When you're content, you don't have too many desires. When you have a lot of desires, you never stay content.
Right.
What I realized is to maintain your internal kind of frame of mind, you have to balance these chemicals. You have to, although I've read a lot about this. What I've personally noticed is you need to make sure you meditate. You need to make sure that external events don't influence you so much, because irrespective of how strong you are mentally, right? External world always changes. There's always a crisis happening every day at a startup, right? It's rare for me to go, to work and there's no problems and it's a smooth day.
Right.
There's always a problem, and you need to be able to maintain your internal calm and composure and never take this seriously. I think people who take startups too seriously and say, "Oh, my idea, this is the best idea in the world. I'm going to put the next 20 years of my life to it." Those are the ones who often end up failing.
Right.
Right. Most of the other guys like Elon Musk, they just like. This is personal. This thing, they just say, okay, let me go and do this. Of course, you need to have a passion, right? Because that helps you stick, right? But lack of seriousness helps you a little bit because the insensitivity kind of helps you stay on track. Otherwise, you get distracted by everyone saying a lot of things.
Okay, brilliant. So I really like this, and you're a very young founder, and you're giving some real great gems of wisdom. So thank you for that. Now, I just want to just deviate slightly. You mentioned meditation a few times. So do you still meditate on a daily basis? What do you do on that?
There's this book called Flow. I don't remember the author again, but your brain ruminates. Like when you think about things, your brain performs an action called rumination. You're thinking about things, you're sifting through positive emotions, negative emotions. You're reacting to those emotions because your blood pressure will rise when you think of a bad thought. And the advantage of meditation, at least the kind of meditation that I do, it's called mindfulness meditation, where basically you non-judgmentally view your thoughts. It's an extremely hard skill to master, but you don't need to just meditate. You just have to be in flow. When you play, when you're focused on the ball. That's why I love football. I used to go to the gym earlier, and I used to focus on the iron. Right now, I focus on the ball when I'm playing this thing. Whatever you're doing, just focus on one thing. Right? It used to scare me earlier because, if I'm focusing on this thing, what if I lose track of everything else? I realized that's how work happens. You have to keep track of everything else. Your mind should be open, right? But in meditation or whatever you're doing, if you're playing, if you're gaming, whatever it is, stay focused on one thing.
Okay.
Right? You need to have a good balance of being focused and being this thing.
Okay. Excellent. Now, startups come with a lot of pressure. So, can you give us some tips on how we can handle pressure when things aren't going well?
I think first thing is to stop taking startups so seriously, because it's I mean, the minute you start taking a startup very seriously, you kind of realize that you're losing track of the important things in life. You have to be able to set multiple perspectives in life. You kind of keep switching between them. Right. For example, when things are going really badly, you have to humor yourself and say I'm a monkey on a spinning disc in the middle of space, and change your perspective just to say that this is a small issue.
Right.
Right. And sometimes when there are really small issues that you need to tackle, you need to magnify them. Right. For example, when I speak to my employees and there's something I really want done. For example, Saturday reports. Right. If my reports are not there on my table by Saturday evening, the next day we'll have a meeting saying that this one report feature, which is actually a very small thing, is now the biggest thing in the company, and if you're not going to be doing this, then there are going to be issues, right? And that's the thing, right? You have to be able to switch perspectives as well as possible. How do you manage pressure? I think you should just not think about it, right? You should have a worry time, and my worry time is 10 in the morning to 6 in the evening. Apart from that, I don't worry. I don't think about things.
Okay, brilliant. Now, can you tell us about your worst entrepreneurial moment, and how did you turn it around, or the lessons you learned from that experience?
My worst entrepreneurial moment definitely has to be burnout. I think the chemical name for this is adrenal fatigue, where I had very bad insomnia. I used to wake up in the middle of the night with terrors, and it was horrible. But my learning from it is, of course, you need 8 hours of sleep. You need to stop thinking, ruminating over things which you cannot control. Just focus on things you can control. That's it.
Okay.
Right? And I used to wake up with night terrors. I had hyperventilation attacks. It was really bad. It was my body failing me. Right? But I've got back on track now, and there is hope for people who are going through the same thing. In fact, I plan to write a blog post about how I fixed it.
Okay.
How people can as well.
Okay, excellent. So that would be blog.jobspire.net. Yeah, we will put that in the show notes so that people can read about the blogs that yourself and your employees produce. Now, what is the revenue model of Jobspire, and what is the future that you envision for your company?
Alright, so the revenue model today is pay per hire. You make per hire, and then you pay us 7% of the CTC. Of course, in the future, we move to subscription. Companies can pay for the regular job board is free, but the premium talent board, we charge a subscription because we're curating these candidates and so on and so forth. And in the future, of course, what we envision is we don't want to be just a jobs board. Right? Today we give value to about 3 to 4% of the traffic that comes to our platform, which is in tune with every other jobs board in the world. But what we want to become is a career graph. We want to help people with skill sets. Tomorrow, if you're looking for how do I become a sales expert, everything in one place, right? We want to build out a CV maker, so on and so forth. So we want to bundle all these things, put them together, and kind of build a recruitment ecosystem. Not on the lines of LinkedIn, but on the lines of how do I figure myself out? How do I figure my career? LinkedIn is more about one-to-one connections and messaging and so on and so forth.
Okay, brilliant. We just have a few more questions, okay? So can you recommend any books or resources for our budding entrepreneurs?
I think first one is Flow. The other one is, I think, Super Genes by Deepak Chopra. I was just reading it as soon as it came out. In fact, the book is about how genes can be switched on and off. If you have a gene for diabetes or any other disease, you can kind of switch it on and off depending on how you live your lifestyle. There's also, it's not a book, it's a course on Coursera. It's social psychology by Wesleyan University.
Okay.
It's one of the best kind of courses I've gone through. It helped me understand, get a basic idea of how psychology works and how people work.
Right.
And another thing that I would recommend is people to kind of use a plugin that blocks negative news. I don't watch the news.
Okay.
Right. Reasoning being is just by default, when is the last time you heard positive news?
Right.
Right. On a TV channel or anywhere online.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's very rare, and the only kind of positive news is comedy or parodies.
Right.
Right. So I kind of avoid all sorts of news. I don't use social media that actively these days because it's just horrible.
Okay.
In terms of other reasons, this is a really good book called "You Are Not So Smart."
Right.
It's by.
It's a really big title, right? It's there on my to-read list. You're not so smart, and why you have so many friends on Facebook.
Yeah, it's by David McCraney, and the title is misleading. It seems like a children's book, but when you read it, it's actually solid psychology, and it kind of tells you why you shouldn't listen to your brain and why your brain plays tricks on you a lot of times. Because there's also Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow by Daniel Kahneman, very good book. On the entrepreneur side of things, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, Ben Horowitz, it's a good book. And I've read, I think, Startup CEO as well, which kind of, and if people are looking to raise money, there's a book by Brad Feld called Venture Deals.
Okay.
So that's about it.
Okay, excellent. These are a lot more than what usually people give. So thanks for that. We'll link up all these books on the show notes. Sorry for all our listeners. If you're wondering what's that pitter patter noise is, it's Varun's dog. It's bring your pet to office day to day. Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So Jobspire is about 1.5 years old now.
Yeah.
Am I right? Okay. So, but in hindsight, if you had to do this all over again, what would you do different?
I would definitely have built the product later. I think I wouldn't have done Jobspire if I had to do it all over again. I would do this when I was a little older, 23, 24. Reason is because I missed out on my 21s, 22s because of Jobspire. Of course, the fame, the kind of adulation, the inspiration. We did a research the other day about how many people our blog posts plus our platform has impacted, and we reached over 1 million. Right?
Wow.
So it's a huge responsibility and a task for someone who's 21, 22 to handle. Because you're also figuring out your life at this point.
Right.
Right. And for most people, they're still figuring out their careers. In fact, every second day I get a job offer of 50, 60 lakhs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing, but you're not working for the money at this point in life, right? So I might have done it a little later, but apart from that, I don't think the problem with starting a company a little later is finding co-founders.
Right.
Right. So that's another issue. My team worked with me for a full 1 year before we raised money.
Right.
Right, for free.
Right.
So you can't find that out of college.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So how can our listeners get in touch with you? What is the best way to reach out to you?
For professional queries, for Jobspire related, you can contact me at mayya@jobspire.net. For personal queries, I have a website, varunmayya.com. You can just contact me at hello@varunmayya.com.
Okay, excellent. Now, I just have one final question, but before we go to that question, I just want to take the time to acknowledge and thank you for sharing your knowledge to myself and our listeners. I'm also very grateful for the value you're adding into the world by means of your startup. And so with that, we'll move on to the final question. Sure. So if there's one gyan that you could give our would-be founders, what would that be?
Would-be founders. It would be to discount your idea. Just focus on being an entrepreneur. Don't focus on this is what I want to solve, this is what I want to create. Because focus on being an entrepreneur. There's a very, very good 1,000-slide presentation by a man named Ryan Allis, RyanAllis. It's about life lessons I learned from, I think, my 20s or something. He's also a very young entrepreneur. He started a company called Eye Contact. He was doing $1 million in sales revenue by when he was 21 or 20. And he wrote a 1,000-slide presentation. Right? And I think it's one of the most inspirational things I've read. What I've seen is motivation is like having a bath. You need to keep motivating yourself every day. The minute you run out of it, your energy runs dry.
Right.
So stay motivated and focus on being an entrepreneur and not on this is what I want to do, this is my idea.
Okay.
Forget that changes over time.
Okay.
And the most stakeholders you kind of bring on, today we have so many stakeholders, we have investors, we have employees. you realize that the control in your own company starts receding, and it's a good thing, because the more control you have, the more responsibility you have.
Right.
When you have slightly less responsibility, you become more creative again. When you have too much responsibility, you play this very conservatively.
Right.
So, and I don't think that's how startups are meant to be played.
Okay, brilliant advice, Varun. I really like it. So thank you very much for your time, and it was a real pleasure chatting with you, and wish you continued success in your future ventures.
Thank you.
There you have it, folks. Another inspiring startup and the story behind it. I do hope you enjoyed this as much as we did in putting this together. Do check out the show notes at www.foundersgyan.com/EP24 and share it with your friends. Who knows, one of them could be inspired by this and create a startup. Also, do subscribe to the show via iTunes, RSS, and Stitcher Radio. These links are all available at foundersgyan.com/EP24. A review would be much appreciated. Also, do check out the previous shows over at FoundersGyan.com. There are some great startups and founders featured on the podcast, on the show. I'll see you all next week with yet another startup and its founder. Until then, you know what the show was meant to do. I do hope you got inspired and take action today on your own startup. Thanks again for tuning in and have a great week ahead.